Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Amen. How are we feeling this morning? Okay, up front. How are we feeling in the back? We feeling good? Okay, this is day 2 of Quest Week, right? Okay, we'll figure it out. If day and a half, I got you.
Yeah, it's like 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we, on behalf of Danny and Prentice, we just want to welcome you to our session this morning. My name is Prentice Ashford. I'm the Dean of the Office of Intercultural Development, better known as OID.
I'm Danny Woods. I'm an Associate Dean in Student Life.
We're just going to jump right in. Does that sound good? Awesome. All right. I love it. Yes. So some of you may have participated in this exercise we're about to do, but I think it's very helpful. The purpose of this exercise is for us, one, to be honest with ourselves, but also to see the peers next to us, just where we're coming from, and kind of the lives we're coming from. It'll make more sense as we dive in, okay? So this is going to take complete participation by everyone, and all you have to do is simply raise your hand. And what I want you to do is answer as honestly as possible. You don't get brownie points for being the person that raises their hand the most, and you don't get shamed for being the person that doesn't raise their hand, okay? So all I want you to do is just be honest, okay? So raise your hand if you would say you lived in a town that was ethnically diverse. Be honest with me, okay? All right. Raise your hand if you feel as if you had plenty of opportunities to experience different cultures growing up. Plenty of opportunities. Okay? Raise your hand if you typically only listen to 1 or 2 genres of music. I know what I like and I stick with it. Okay? Raise your hand if you visited a church that was a different denomination than the one you grew up in. Wow. Okay. All right. Raise your hand. Comfortable meaning initiating a conversation, okay? Raise your hand if you're comfortable talking with someone of a different religion. Initiating a conversation, okay? Raise your hand if you're comfortable talking with someone of a different sexual orientation than yourself. Okay? And raise your hand if you're comfortable talking with someone of a different race or ethnicity. Okay. Now this last one's going to be a little bit different, all right? So raise your hand if you are comfortable talking about religious news or events with someone of a different religion than you. Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you're comfortable talking about sexual orientation, news, or events with someone of a different sexual orientation than yourself. Okay. And then the last one, raise your hand if you're comfortable talking about race issues, news, or events with someone of a different race. Okay. Danny?
So yesterday, we kicked off Quest Week with this idea of stereotypes. Then Meg Jo did a great job talking to you guys about Lipscomb as a place full of different people. That might shock some of you. You may have come to Lipscomb a couple of days ago, on Sunday, whenever that was, and think that you were walking into a place full of people who were going to look just like you, that were going to think like you, that came from the same background that you had. And you may be sitting here today thinking, this looks different than I thought. I didn't expect to interact with so many people, different people on a different spectrum of whatever finish that is. Or maybe you're on the opposite side of that. Maybe you came and thought, I thought I was coming to a place that was going to have more people who looked like me. And I'm not seeing that when I look around this room. I'm not seeing what I expected on either side of that conversation. We want to tell you today that Lipscomb is a place that values diversity. We firmly believe that we're a better institution because we are filled with people who look different, come from different parts of the world, different cultures, different faith traditions. We believe that adds value to not only your experience, but to the name of Lipscomb. Lipscomb values diversity so much that Prentice and I have jobs. So, right, Prentice works with OID. I work with our LGBTQ students. Our job is to make this a more inclusive campus. Our job is to introduce you to big questions, ask you to wrestle with those, and hopefully at the end of the day, have better citizens because of your experience here at a diverse Lipscomb.
Absolutely. And I would add on to that, just like this exercise we did, I hope now, day 1.5 of Quest Week, we've been here and we're talking to people and we understand, one, just because you look like me, we may have totally different experiences. But two, how do I break down or how do I initiate the conversation with someone who I may not have any clue about? I may not agree with what you're saying. I may not agree with what you're doing. But how do I use this next 15, 16 weeks where we're living together, sharing the same community together, and actually trying to have civil conversations in class? How do I go about that in a way that is constructive, productive, and one that opens the door for potential relationship with you and me, right? So what I want to do for the next couple of minutes, I want to walk us through these 7 questions. And these 7 questions, although you can see all of them, I'll break them down for you. Because what I want you to do is just go ahead and get in that mindset of, I'm engaging with different people, I'm living with different people, I may be coming from a small town, I may be coming from a big town. My high school graduating class of, I think I met someone the other day with a graduating class of 6 people. And then, like myself and other people, 600 plus people. So how do we all live in community with each other? So number one question I want you to ask, or the first question I want you to ask yourself is, am I here for more than just a classroom education? Okay? Really think about that. If my mindset is I'm coming here, I'm just going to get good grades, then I'm going to graduate. Think about all the potential experiences you're missing out on. Think about, sure, yes, we are here to be students. We are here to get good grades, but think about all the different things that can add value to your classroom experience. I know we've heard this 1,000 times again, but I'm going to be 1,001, okay? Am I here for more than a classroom experience? The second question to ask yourself is, am I going to try to expand my circle of influence, my friends, or am I simply trying to do high school 2.0? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but all of us know people in here who may have been the man or the woman in high school, right? Prom king, prom queen, head of the football team, basketball team, and you ran the school, right? So are you trying to be that exact same person here? I'm going to stick with the people that are closest to me. I'm going to stick with the people that have the same mindsets as me, the same experiences and the same thoughts. Or am I going to try to push myself to go talk to Johnny or Sue over there who I potentially could be vulnerable with and expose myself a little bit to? Am I trying to just do high school all over again, or am I trying to really get an authentic experience and a different experience, even if I grew up in Nashville or halfway across the world? All right? The third question I want you to consider or ask yourself is, am I willing to get uncomfortable to get to know someone else and their perspective? Like when Danny introduced herself and myself, we're constantly going to be pushing you to consider other perspectives. My job, it's in my title, intercultural development. That, by definition, means you and I aren't the same. Let me talk about why you and I aren't the same. What value do you have? What value do I have? What challenges do you have? What challenges do I have? And do I want to get uncomfortable getting into your space and possibly not knowing or being able to relate? You follow me on that? The fourth question I want to ask, or I want you to ask, is, what's my response when I am confronted with someone who looks differently than me or believes differently than me? So I was talking to a group of students, I believe the honors college students on Sunday, and we did similar exercises where we talked about culture. We talked about all these things that make up who we are, from our parents, the teachings that they gave us, to who lives on this side of the train tracks, to this side of the train tracks of my town, and we really broke this thing down. And what we realized is all of us are here in the same place at the same time, but we're all bringing a certain level of baggage, positive, negative, all these things that make us who we are. But we're told you have to try to make friends with people that we don't know, right? So what we realize is when I see somebody, what's your name? Yes. Cananiah. When I meet Cananiah, who was David's songwriter or something like that, right? So I'm on the right track. I met him the other day. So when I meet Cananiah, when I see him, in my mind, I already know who he is based off my experiences, based off of people that look like him, based off people that have biblical names. All these interactions are going through my brain, sizing Cananiah up. So I have to automatically say, am I going to get to know him or even walk his way, Or am I going to allow my past experiences to influence whether I walk past him or talk to him? You know? So we all come with these hidden biases, preconceived notions, these assumptions based off of who we think they are without ever talking to them. So how am I going to respond when I'm confronted with somebody who looks differently than me or maybe believes things differently than I do? The fifth question is, how willing am I to ask questions and be a listener rather than inserting myself into a conversation? Again, we did this exercise the other day where we went back and forth and trying to say, you know, we're trying to break down this awkward ice. The last thing I want to do is talk to somebody and have no idea what they're talking about, or for me to seem ignorant and not be able to relate. But am I comfortable getting to know Cananiah, him saying something, and me not having a clue what he's talking about, and that being okay? I'm here to tell you that it is perfectly fine for you to talk to someone and not know what they're talking about. That's the beauty of relationship. That's the beauty of getting to know a different perspective. That's the beauty of being allowed into somebody else's life. I don't always have to show how Prentice can relate to Cananiah. I don't always have to show how Prentice can relate to your experience so that Prentice doesn't look awkward. It's totally fine for me just to talk to you and hear from you, okay? The sixth one is, how open am I to learning other things? I hope you've heard this in my message. I hope you've heard this in 1 through 5. How open am I to learning a different way of life, different experiences, a different group of people, different cultures, different customs? How open, really, how open are you to doing that? And then the last one, before I pass it back to Danny, do I really want to grow and evolve in this season? I think that's what we all have to answer today is, I'm here, day 1.5 of Quest Week. How much do I want to grow? How much do I want to allow myself to open up to other people's other perspective, other cultures? How bad do I really want to grow and evolve in this season?
I think Prentice and I are up here hoping that your answer is a lot. We are all starting at different places right now in this conversation. Nobody has made it, not Prentice or I. We're not as far as we're ever going to go, and to be more inclusive, to be more loving. But we're all on this journey, and so we're asking you to really be thinking about, where are you right now? Where do you need to go? Where are you open to going? And we're not talking about changing your opinion on every topic or anything even close to that. We're just trying to open your mind to that there's going to be a lot you experience in these next couple years, a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures, and we want you to approach that not with a posture of arms crossed, this is I am who I am, I don't care who you are, and I'm not going to learn anything from you. We want you to go into that with open hands, saying, I want to learn from you, I want to invest in you and see you for who you are. College is a time of discovery, investigation. It is unknown. You have no idea what the next 4 years are going to look like in your life. You don't know what you're going to receive, be exposed to, what you're going to learn. There is no way for you right now, and I speak with full experience and confidence to say, you have no idea who you're going to be when you walk across that stage at the end of these 4 years. There are things about you that will not change, but this experience changes you, and we see so much beauty in that. That is the growth, and growth happens in that tension, in that space. There's a social scientist named Brene Brown, and she wrote this book a couple years ago called Braving the Wilderness. And she has researched this idea of how do we truly find a sense of belonging, which is such a high value. If we don't feel like we belong somewhere, we can't thrive in that space. So in our current culture and time, this idea of finding a true sense of belonging when our culture and society is so polarizing. Everything you're hearing all the time is screaming at you, pick a side, cross your arms, put your heel in, stand there, and that's it. We're teaching you, let's just hate the other person. This is what I believe, and if you don't agree with me, then I'm probably going to hate you because there's no way we could get along. This is what we're saying, no. Just because our human inclination teaches us to dig in and cross our arms does not mean that's what we're being called to as a body of believers. She describes this space as the wilderness, this area of being in the tension and the vulnerability of, I don't agree with you. I don't see things the way you see them. I don't understand where you're coming from. But that doesn't mean I see you as less than human. That doesn't mean I devalue you. But sometimes when we do that, when I don't agree with you and I can't understand how you got there, I don't understand why you have that experience, I start viewing you as less than. And I think that here at Lipscomb is what we say we have a problem with. Because we firmly believe that every person is an image bearer of God. And if we are all image bearers of the King, that means we all have worth and value. That means that every person we interact with, whether we disagree with them on anything, should be met with respect and grace, and we treat them with dignity. And that is something we won't compromise on here at Lipscomb. And we're inviting you into that as you do this discovery of, no, you're going to meet different people. Brene says it this way in a quote in the book: if our faith asks us to find the face of God in everyone we meet, that should include the politicians, media, and strangers on Twitter with whom we most violently disagree. When we desecrate their divinity, we desecrate our own. And we betray our faith. Challenging ourselves to live by higher standards requires constant diligence and awareness. I want you to hold on to those two words, that idea of diligence and awareness. Brene encourages the reader to step into that wilderness. That's what the whole book is about. Step into the wilderness. Live in this space where you're willing to be vulnerable and say, I don't know, I don't fully understand, and I'm a little scared that if I show you too much love or if I show you too much grace, then I'm giving up something. I'm giving up my stance. I'm giving up my faith. I'm giving up. And what she's encouraging is saying, no, stand true by what you believe and who you are, but stop making that be the thing that makes you see other people as not worthy of what? Not worthy of love, not worthy of your respect, not worthy of the grace that we're called to give everyone we interact with. I found it really interesting when I was reading this book because of the idea of wilderness. As someone who is a believer, the idea of wilderness isn't foreign to me. All through Scripture, we hear about the wilderness over and over again, right? The Israelites traveled in the wilderness for 40 years. Jesus spent time in the wilderness praying. He was tested by Satan in the wilderness. The Israelites, in their 40 years, it was a season of introspection, loss, and heartache. Jesus stepped away into the wilderness to stop and pause and reflect. Tested by Satan in the wilderness. Neither of those things sounds super fun to me. But what happens on the other side of the wilderness, time and time again in Scripture? What are the Israelites looking for? The promised land, right? What happens to Jesus after he's done being tested? The angels surround him and care for him and take care of him. The idea of a promised land and angels taking care of everything I need sounds really good. So what does that look like in this conversation as we're asking you to step into the wilderness? We're saying that we know the work is hard. We know the questions that we're going to ask you to consider are going to be difficult to wrestle with. But we're saying it's okay to wrestle because the other side, getting through that one topic, that one issue, and figuring out where you are on that and how to love and value people, that is sweet. That is milk and honey, promised land sweet. And we want you to live in that sweetness that we think we're called to as believers in this conversation. Again, striving for diligence and awareness. That's all we want you to do. Be aware of who's around you. Be aware of their experiences. You don't have to agree with every position. You don't have to agree with every topic. But stop thinking that everyone thinks just like you, and if they don't, there's something wrong with them. That is not grace. That's not seeing everyone as image bearers in our kingdom.
I think, just to conclude, I think Danny said it greatly. She said it perfectly. It would be foolish for us to think that everybody thinks the way that you do. And you would be robbing yourself of an experience if you approach it that way. Now, hear me say, some of you students in here are going to be the leaders in the wilderness, right? You're the ones who's confident in yourself. You know the issues you're real passionate about. You know the people you're passionate about. And you're going to be out in the front saying, I'm advocating, I'm doing this, I'm talking, I'm helping out, I'm doing that. Hear me say that is perfectly okay, all right? What we're going to have to learn is, how do we help the people who aren't the leaders come up? Now, some of us are going to be the people in the back saying, nope, you go ahead, I'm already lost in the wilderness, you go ahead and risk yourself and be vulnerable. I'm not going to do that. What's going to be challenging for you is, how do you allow the people who are up there, how do you reach up and say, hey, help me out? The problem comes in when we allow ourselves to stay at the front or stay in the back and think that's perfectly fine. So that's what the wilderness is all about. Being uncomfortable, it will be. Forcing yourself to, when you see something happen, you say, oh my goodness, I don't get that. Well, let me try to see from their perspective. Or you say, yes, I absolutely understand what's going on. How can you not get that? But being okay saying, well, maybe they just don't have the experience to be able to realize why this is affecting him or her, okay? So all we're asking you to do, be open to the idea that you're gonna meet different people, you're gonna have different conversations, it's gonna be difficult, and it's gonna feel like the wilderness moment. So, Danny?
Yeah, you'll see Prentice and I time and time again throughout the next couple years. Our offices are right in the basement of the campus center. Come down, see us, talk to us more. We're excited for you to be here. We're excited to walk along the study journey beside you. That's why we're here, because we really think it matters, and so we're excited for that. This is the end of your morning sessions. You have a lunch break now. You will be scanning out with the Quest team members who are in the back of the hallway. This is just a reminder that all sessions are required, and we're scanning for attendance. So this is what it will look like when you go to chapel next week. But just be sure that when you're in here, you have to scan out at the end of it. Quest team will have that. Get your IDs out. If you don't have your ID, you're going to have to write down your L number, which is probably really hard for you because most of you don't know that yet. So make sure you have your L number. Going to lunch. Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon.